Good evening. It's not over until it's over. Boris Johnson's offer to fly to Paris, Berlin or Brussels this weekend to go that extra mile was met with a Gallic shrug. But talks are continuing over the next couple of days. But what are they actually talking about? The UK has made it clear that its red lines, fishing rights, competition rules and an adjudication system for breaches of rules are tight. And for its part, the EU appears to have moved on to deciding contingencies for a no deal. So is that all there is left to discuss? How to navigate the weeks and months ahead? How to do business in a post-Brexit world to stop thousands of lorries clogging up ports and motorways? And if so, who has the whip hand? Well, we'll be discussing that in a moment. But first, here's our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban. Very much indeed. Well, in the US, there is actually one deadline. It's just 39 days until Donald Trump leaves office, and he is yet formally to acknowledge that Joe Biden actually won the presidential election. In fact, this transition period has none of the hallmarks of previous ones in modern times, and in one respect at least is breaking a convention which has lasted 130 years. That is pausing executions. Overnight, the first of 5 executions scheduled before Inauguration Day took place. 40-year-old Brandon Bernard, a convicted killer who'd been behind bars since he was 18, was put to death in Indiana. Critics say the move is linked to the fact that Joe Biden has said that he will seek to end the death penalty. Our North America correspondent. But does all this show that Donald Trump is simply not going to be following any of the niceties ahead of the inauguration? For the past 12 years, the Oscar-winning British director Steve McQueen has been working towards addressing what he's called the weird absence of black people from British television drama and stories of the black British experience. A child of the Windrush generation, he has now made an anthology of films for the BBC and Amazon under the banner of Small Axe, about the West Indian community in London from the 1960s to the 80s. They explore the extraordinary and the everyday, the injustices, police brutality, riots and racism, but also the cultural and family traditions, the church, the food, the music of the time. The 5th and final film, Education, which airs on Sunday on BBC One, tells the shocking story of Kingsley, a boy who, like many other black children, did not get the education they deserved under the English system. I spoke to Steve McQueen, but first, a taste of Sunday's film. And Education is on BBC One on Sunday night at 9 o'clock. And the BBC has announced that edited versions of the 5 films will be used on BBC Bite-Size and Teach in classrooms to tell these British stories. Well, that's all from us tonight. But we couldn't go without marking the life of Dame Barbara Windsor, who has died at the age of 83. From her long and varied career in showbiz, you'll have seen the famous clips from the legendary Carry On series and, of course, her huge success as Peggy Mitchell in EastEnders. But we thought we'd give you a bit of her saucy Nancy. In this clip from 1980, she and Wurzel Gummidge end up talking about fish. Well, isn't everybody? Good night, Babs.